Saving America one entrepreneur at a time, it's the Biz Wrap Podcast with your host, Michael Manahan. The show that celebrates small business and entrepreneurs, it's Biz Wrap Radio with your host, small businessman, educator, and author, Michael Manahan. And welcome to another edition of Biz Wrap Radio. I'm your host, Mike Manahan, and thank you so much for joining me today. As always, we've got a great show lined up for you. Biz Wrap Radio, if you're new to the show, we are the show all about small business and entrepreneurs. Yes, that's right. We're here fighting for the small businesses of America. Now, you may be under a misconception because every time the government has a problem, the first thing they do is they go to big businesses. You know, we had the financial crisis. They're bailing out General Motors. They're bailing out the banks. But really, most people in America work for small businesses. Most jobs, as we recover from the recession, are created by small businesses. And it seems the small business community really gets overlooked. So that's why we're here, Biz Wrap Radio. Well, let's move on with the show. I have a fabulous guest lined up for today. His name is Aaron Young. He is the CEO of Laughlin Associates, and Laughlin Associates is a company that is in business to help other businesses incorporate themselves. So he is an expert on the subject of incorporation. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, thanks so much for having me on. I'm really looking forward to it.
So just give me kind of a rundown of what Laughlin Associates does.
Well, we started in 1972, so we're 43 years old, working on our 44th year. We are the original Nevada incorporation service. So if you've ever heard, or if your listeners have ever heard that Nevada is a very business-friendly place to do or start your company, it's really in great part thanks to Harley Laughlin, the guy that started the company back in the early 70s. So they helped get legislation pushed through to make Nevada into the business-friendly destination that it is. And then in 2001, Mr. Laughlin passed away. I was able to buy the company, and in 2001 we expanded from just doing Nevada corporations to all 50 states, and then we've added a number of other business services companies like helping businesses do corporate formalities, all the record-keeping stuff that most business owners, small business owners, especially entrepreneurs, hate doing paperwork. We help them with a lot of the stuff that they're required by law to do. We also help with business credit, business funding, estate planning, exit planning, and so on. So we're kind of a cradle-to-grave service for businesses, all the way from when you're just trying to figure out what to do and what the right entity is, all the way to very successful and ready to sell or pass the business down to the next generation. We have clients that fit all those levels. And we currently have about 46,000 customers that we're serving and have helped well over 100,000 business owners over the years.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. Now, you talk about corporate record keeping, and this is something from experience I know as a business consultant, having worked with literally hundreds of companies myself. And typically I'm working with a company on the financing side. A company's trying to raise some money. They need assistance in packaging themselves. Perhaps they need a business plan put together or polished. They need perhaps financial projections. But the minute a lender or an investor gets interested, one of the first things they start to do is something called due diligence. And part of the due diligence process is they ask for things like your board minutes where you have approved major activities, the minutes from your annual meeting. And lo and behold, you go to the corporate record book, and the business may have incorporated 10 years ago. There's nothing. There's no minutes, no records.
Nothing.
Sometimes they've never even bothered to issue the share certificates to the original stockholders of the corporation. So the fact that you you provide those types of services. That really is a great asset to somebody who's not sure what to do once they get that company incorporated.
Yeah, most small business owners if they form a corporation or LLC, they did it because they just thought it was a good idea, or a friend, did it, so they did the same thing. Or I've had lots of people call me and or call our office and wonder, well, I kind of like the way LLC sounds better than Inc. So I think I want to be an LLC. So a lot of times we set these entities up, really not knowing how to best use them, or what our obligations and legal responsibilities are with them. And as you say, we meet, I would say 90 plus, maybe 95% of the business owners that are not, you said you help people raise money. So once they've raised money, they typically have a traditional board of directors, right? They've got people from the outside who are now there, and they have a board secretary, and they have board meetings, and they keep minutes of the meetings. But up until that point, and for companies that are never going to go there, the business owner is usually the only director, and the idea of having a meeting with himself or herself, taking roll and calling the meeting to order and writing down their thoughts on the direction of the company just kind of sounds like a little bit of crazy talk. It's like, why in the world would I have a meeting with myself? And so consequently, I think most small companies or companies where you have one director, they think, well, that doesn't exactly apply to me because I own the company, I'm running the company, I'm the president of the company. It was my money that went in to get the business started. So, that's for big companies or something. But you're right. If they want to sell, if they want to raise money, if they get audited, if they get sued, one of the very first pieces of due diligence is the board minute book. And the lack of minutes, the lack of resolutions, the lack of issuing stock, just as you mentioned, if you don't issue the stock, you're not you don't own the company. If you don't issue the shares and put your name on the stock certificate, you don't own it. And when I tell people that, they're like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "No, that's because until you get the shares, they're not your shares."
Aaron,
you see people with those stock certificates. They look at them in their minute book, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with those?" And they just flip the page past it because it's intimidating for somebody who's never done it.
Yeah. Although I'll tell you something, I'm guilty of it myself. I had a visit from our friendly folks at the IRS recently doing a little audit. And one of the things the IRS auditor asked for was, I want to see your minutes from your annual meetings. And I have a corporation that I'm the sole stockholder, just like you say, and I had not done minutes for a couple of years, and I had to sit there and listen to this IRS auditor giving me a big lecture on how it's my responsibility as a taxpayer to keep proper records, and I felt like crawling under my table.
We had a guy that is now a client, but he was a large home builder in Utah. He claims that he built Dick Cheney's home up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and he said he was audited. This was actually one of those deals that you could never script it. It's like you wish you had a camera on. I was actually teaching a class in front of an audience, and this guy near the end stood up and said, "I just want to say that I can vouch for what this man is telling us about corporate records. I was audited. I felt great. I had great financial records. My CFO was there, my accountant, my lawyer." And the very first thing the auditor wanted was the record book, and they flipped through the book, closed it, and said, "Okay, we're dealing with a sole proprietor, not a corporation." And he said they disallowed over $250,000 in deductions.
Wow! So this is really important stuff. If you're going to form a corporation, you really have to. You got to take care of that record keeping. It's not difficult, but a lot of people neglect it. But your company, Laughlin Associates, you will actually help somebody, if they've got a corporation, to actually maintain at least a minimum amount of record keeping that they need to be in compliance with auditors and other things. Aaron, we've just got a few minutes here, actually a few seconds here before we go to commercial break. Very quickly, how can somebody get a hold of you?
They can write Aaron Young at LaughlinUSA.com, or they can call 775-883-8484, 775-883-8484.
Great. It's Mike Manahan, your host, Biz Rap Radio. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Mike Manahan, and thanks so much for joining me today. If you just joined us, got a very interesting guest on the line. I've got Aaron Young. He's the CEO of Laughlin Associates. Laughlin Associates is a company that provides incorporation services. You can actually go to them and they will incorporate your company in any one of 50 different states, as well as a number of other related business services that business people need. So, Aaron, thanks very much for sticking with me on the show.
Oh, yeah, this is great.
So let's talk. Let's get into some meat about this. You mentioned that you could incorporate in many different states. How does that decision-making process work? Let's say I'm, for instance, sitting here in California. Should I incorporate in California? Should I incorporate in Nevada? A friend of mine I just had drinks with the other night, he said, Mike, he says, the place to incorporate is Wyoming. That's the place to incorporate. Does it make a difference? And if it does, what difference does it make?
Yeah, well, those are great questions. So, the first thing you want to do is decide what your end goal is. Where are you going with this business? So you always want to begin with the end in mind. And once you have a very clear idea of at least what you hope to achieve, that will start to determine things like what kind of business structure and what jurisdiction is going to be best. Now, let me be really clear with your listeners. I am not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. We're not a law firm. I'm an entrepreneur like you, like them, and so I'm telling you, I'm giving you information based on 32 years of owning and running companies and, hundreds of thousands, well over 100,000 clients. So I've been around a lot, and I can speak in generalities, but that does not replace a lawyer or a CPA. So now that I've given my little "Don't Sue Aaron" speech, let me tell you what I think the answer to your question is. If you're going to be doing business, like you're going to have a footprint in a specific jurisdiction, you're in California and you're going to be a plumber, you're going to be a life coach, you're going to be a manufacturer, you're going to be an auto repair shop. Well, no matter where you're incorporated, if you have an actual footprint and you're doing your business in a specific jurisdiction, then you're going to have to be either incorporated there or registered as a foreign corporation there in that jurisdiction. So in other words, if you followed your buddy's advice and you formed your corporation or LLC in Wyoming, and then did your business in California, you would not only have to pay Wyoming's fees, but also California's fees. In other words, the franchise tax fee in California doesn't go away just because you're a Wyoming corporation. And so you'll end up doing both. Now, so then people will say, well, why would I do anything besides be incorporated, in this case, in California? Well, the reason is because if you're in Wyoming, if you're in Nevada, if you're a privately held company, if you're in Delaware, particularly if you're public or going to be acquired by a public company, there are laws in those states that you would write your contracts using that law, that you would adjudicate any kind of problems in that state, and those states give the business owner, rather than the plaintiff, which could be an employee, or it could be any plaintiff, but basically Wyoming, Nevada, really look after the shareholder, officers, and directors, whereas California is always in favor of anybody but the owner, officer, director.
Wow, isn't that a real surprise?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. It's sort of like the difference between Germany and Switzerland. Right next to each other, you've got a very business-friendly jurisdiction in Switzerland. Privacy is, although they've given up a lot of their privacy laws, but they're very focused on the owner. And that's why they've been able to stay neutral for hundreds and hundreds of years, because they're not taking sides. Whereas you could go to Germany or any of the other countries in Western Europe that are very socialistic, and they're going to go against the company. The laws are going to tend to be against the company. But we have that same situation with Nevada and California. And California is such a gigantic business jurisdiction that the business owners are really looked at in a lot of ways as a way to pay for social programs in the state. So they're going to continue to come after the business owner and try to exact more and more and more money from them. And the more successful you are, the more money you're going to give the government. Well, Nevada is kind of the other way around, and they know that they don't have Hollywood and beaches and big, they do have the Sierra Nevadas on the extreme western side, but mostly Nevada is a big desert. And they have to attract people, and especially since gambling has been lost from Nevada to so many Indian reservations and other places, that's really gone down as a form of income for Nevada. So Nevada's very desperate to attract business in. Same with Wyoming.
Right.
And that's why they give friendly taxes, friendly laws, because they want your money in Nevada banks.
But now
they want
Nevada
you to pay them fees, and that's what it's a business for them.
But now Nevada is no longer as cheap as it used to be. I can remember, 20 years ago, it cost nothing to have a corporation in Nevada. Now it's still going to cost you $400 a year to have a corporation there.
Yeah, it's about $460 if I remember my numbers exactly right. Versus Wyoming, that's $100. Versus California, that's just the franchise tax fees, $800 plus the other state fees. So Nevada is not as inexpensive as it used to be, but what Nevada is a proven commodity now. By the way, I'm not pitching Nevada. I'm just saying Nevada has proven over all these years, 40 plus years, that it's really serious about protecting the business owner.
Right.
They've thumbed their nose over and over and over again at sharing information with the IRS. Mm-hmm. They continue to not ask for the shareholder's name in the public record. Mm-hmm. So you can still be private, whereas in California they want to know exactly who owns any significant amount of shares.
Right.
So I'm not saying Nevada is the place, and I'm not saying Wyoming isn't as good as Nevada. What I'm saying is I had an office for many years in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and doing the same thing. It was a Laughlin office. And we ended up closing the office because Wyoming was not supporting that incorporation office very well. Mm-hmm. So you had one employee in there, and if we tried to give them any volume, they couldn't keep up.
Gotcha.
And so I thought, well, okay, so it's cheaper, but they have no real commitment to this industry or to this business. So we pulled out of Wyoming, and if somebody really wants a Wyoming company, we just use a friend up there to be the incorporator and resident agent.
I understand.
The point is, begin with the end in mind, get into the right jurisdiction, and understand that just because you hear a great line about don't pay taxes or avoid your state taxes in California, it's very likely not true.
Right, and that's a key thing. And you mentioned getting some advice from your CPA and your attorney, and of course, I highly recommend that you do that as well. But I would add one caveat. And as a person who teaches accounting at university and is, a member of all these different accounting associations, there are accountants and there are accountants. And some accountants, they're bookkeepers. They can do journal entries and create financial statements. They really have no understanding about the complexities of where businesses should incorporate and the nuances that you can put into play to more effectively manage not only your business entities but your taxes. So you really want to make sure you are going to somebody who knows their stuff, and that's something I should do is probably get a CPA on the show who really does know his stuff to talk about this. But just why in general should somebody incorporate, Aaron? I mean, why not just be a sole proprietor?
A sole proprietor, yeah, good question. Well, the main reason you do it is if you're a sole proprietor, then it's easy because you don't have to, there's no regulations for you, there's no extra fees, there's no extra filings, but everything that you own is up for grabs if you're ever challenged or if your business fails. And so the reason people for hundreds of years have been forming companies or corporations and for dozens of years been forming LLCs is because that corporation becomes a separate legal, basically like a paper person. and that paper person is the one responsible for success and failure of the business. And if the business doesn't work out, and just remember, Mike, 4 out of 5 companies these days fail. So 80% of the companies are not going to work out. If you're a sole proprietor and you have debts and commitments and so on as a business, you're going to carry those chains around with you, kind of like Marley's ghost in A Christmas Carol, right? You're gonna be burdened down by that. The government doesn't want entrepreneurs burdened down. The government knows that only a tiny sliver of the population has the guts to go be an entrepreneur, and they want you, when you fail, they want you to dust you off and pat you on the butt and say, go back to work.
Aaron, I got to interrupt you. We got to go to commercial break. This is great stuff. Mike Manahan, your host, BizRap Radio. We'll be right back. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. It's your host, Mike Manahan, and thanks for sticking with us. And if you just joined us, we are, of course, BizRap Radio, the show all about entrepreneurs and small business people. You've got a gentleman on the line with us who's been helping businesses and entrepreneurs for many years. It's Aaron Young. He's the CEO at Lachlan Associates. Lachlan Associates is a company that helps businesses incorporate, and in addition, provides additional services that corporations may need. Aaron, thanks for staying with us.
Oh, yeah, Mike, this has been fun.
Okay, so we just finished off. We talked in the last segment about the legal liability or the limitations on legal liability that come with forming a corporation, where basically the corporate debts are not necessarily the debts of the individual. But I want to throw out a caution there, because I was at a business conference just literally 2-3 months ago. And there was a credit card company sitting there saying, apply for your business credit card. Limits up to $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. So I said, well, I said, I'll give it a shot, because I wanted to go through the process so I could talk about it on my radio show. So I go through all the information. He wanted my, taxpayer ID number, which I gave him. And then he asked for my Social Security number. And I said, well, why do you need my Social Security number? Oh, well, he says, we have to run a credit check on you. I said, well, hang on. I thought this was a business credit card. Well, it is a business credit card. We're going to put your business's name on the credit card. So I said, I'm not personally responsible. My corporation is responsible. Oh, no, he says. When you sign up for this credit card, you're personally responsible for it. Doesn't matter about your business. You're personally guaranteeing this. I said, well, that's not a business credit card. That's a ripoff. And I turned around and walked away. And I'm not going to say the name of the company, only because I can't remember which credit card company it was. But I did a show about 2 months ago where I did say what the company's name was. So be very careful, because I know here in Los Angeles, I hear ads on the radio, incorporate a company in Nevada or some other place, and you're going to have access to tons of credit. You can build, $50,000, $100,000 in credit for your corporation. Well, a lot of those credit opportunities will require you as a business person to sign a personal guarantee in the paperwork, which makes the whole purpose of the corporation not really very effective. So have you run into that kind of situation, Aaron?
Yeah, that's a really good tip, and it's something that I meet people all the time who say, well, I have this credit card and it has my company's name on it, so I have a business credit card, and I always ask them, did you sign a personal guarantee? Because as soon as you do, you're right. Now you may as well be a sole proprietor. You're going to bear the personal risk. It's why when you sign any document as president of your corporation or manager of your LLC, you always put your title on the signature line, because that says, I'm acting as the officer of this organization. I'm not personally guaranteeing this contract. And I see people make that mistake regularly, and it comes back to haunt them. It kind of voids out the value of the corporation or LLC. Now, let me just speak a little bit more to that credit issue. So what you said is exactly right. If you have to do a personal guarantee, if you have to give them your Social Security number and you have to pass a credit check, then what's the point? It's access to money, which a lot of small business owners want, but it's not going to be the responsibility of the company. It's going to be the responsibility of the individual. But you can build corporate credit, but it's not easy. I mean, it takes time. It can take 6 months or a year of very, very orchestrated applying for small lines of credit, with like Staples or Home Depot, and getting that, and then buying some stuff, paying it off, and then you build up your corporate credit score to the point where you can get loans or credit cards and so on that are the sole responsibility of the company. But it's not like a magic wand. It's not pixie dust. You have to follow a very orchestrated set of steps in order to do it. But you can absolutely do it. Just don't get fooled by offers that are bogus like the one you just described. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of misunderstandings. And you know what it is with small business owners, we're good at doing some task. And so we start doing it, and we're doing it on the side, maybe during having a job, and our friends say, "Oh my gosh, you could sell that," or you should, everybody loves your cookies. You show up in a bakery, or everybody, you're the best auto mechanic I've ever met. You should get a shop. And maybe they do that, and they open up a shop of whatever sort. They start doing their thing. What you find out is if you don't learn how to be a business manager, if you don't learn what it is to run a business, you might say, "I own my own company, I work for myself," but what you are is actually just sort of an indentured servant to the business, and you can't really leave. It becomes kind of like a dairy farm. You got to milk the cows every morning and every night. Try to go on vacation, there's no cash flow, there's no income. A lot of people get onto this hamster wheel of working and making money, but not really building a company that transcends them, that transcends their talent, their being there every day to meet the public and do the work. And so what I encourage people to do is, first of all, get incorporated or get an LLC, figure out the right one for what you're trying to do, begin with the end in mind. And then after you get that part done, that's setting up the corporation, Mike, is kind of like, you guys are in California. It's like buying a ticket to Disneyland. You go up to the little booth, you give them your, whatever it is now, $98 or something, and you have your ticket to the Magic Kingdom, and you're really excited about it. And then you go back out to the parking lot and go drive down, Beach Boulevard or whatever it is over there, Harbor, and you don't ever get the value of going into the park and having the experience. Mm-hmm. If you form your corporation or LLC and then start learning how to run a business, not just how to do the task, start learning about how to keep your corporate formalities current so that you're protected, because without them you are not protected. If you don't do the corporate formalities, it's like you have the ticket but you never went in. You never really acted in the way that you were intending to act. So it's critical that you get that work done. And then start learning about systems. Start learning about how do you duplicate yourself. Start adding in employees who, I love this expression, who play at the tasks that you have to work at. Find the right people and start building a real business, a business that's bigger than you, the founder. If you do that, and this is what we teach people, so yes, we incorporate people, and yes, we do corporate records. The main thing that's kept Laughlin thriving for 43 years is an incredible amount of education, helping people go from I have an idea to now I'm starting to now what do I do to start with my first employee? How do I start putting in accounting systems? We teach all these things and try to provide value so that our core business, which is, being your resident agent and providing, basic services, you get that edge of being in business more than 3 or 4 years. You beat the odds and you stay in business and you have some success. I decided early on when we decided to go beyond just Nevada and work in all 50 states, I said our goal shouldn't be volume. Our goal should be education. And we should be getting people what they need to be successful, because there's such high failure rate in business. We don't want to have to keep selling people over and over and over again. We want to get clients in and help them succeed so they stay in business. And that it's been the secret to our success, but it's a critical thing for small business. And now you own 2 businesses yourself, don't you, Mike?
I do indeed, yes.
And you're a professor, and you're a radio host, and. You can't be everything to everybody unless you build systems, unless you figure out at least the basics of why things work in business. Then you can delegate to third parties, but you've got to know. You can't just trust it 100% to somebody else. And I hope as your listeners are thinking about these things, they will think about, how can I be more than just self-employed? How can I be a real business owner, and how can I build an asset, not just a glorified job?
Well, that's
the key.
Yeah, that is excellent advice, and I'm glad you said that, because I'm sure there's people out there who maybe even have incorporated. They've heard one of these radio ads, they've gone and spent whatever the money was to incorporate a company, and now that company is basically what they call sitting on the shelf. But look, we got to go to commercial break. Aaron, I'm enjoying this so much. Can you stick with us for just one more segment?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Okay, great. It's your host, Mike Manahan, BizRap Radio, and we will be back right after these messages. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. It's your host, Mike Manahan, and thank you so much for joining us today. If you just tuned in, we are the show all about small business and entrepreneurs, and we have on the line with us Aaron Young. He's the CEO of Laughlin Associates, a business that helps other businesses incorporate, and in addition, he provides other services that incorporated businesses could use. And he's just been talking about the fact that you can't just go and incorporate a business. You actually have to think a little bit more about the business you're going to run, and putting in systems and processes to build a business, so you're being more than just basically a worker bee that happens to work for yourself. So Aaron, thanks so much for staying with us for another segment.
You bet.
Now, before we go any further, I'm sure people listening say, well, how can I learn more? What is your website? Where can people go to get a hold of you?
You bet. So if they go to LaughlinUSA.com, it's LAUGHLIN, LaughlinUSA.com. There's just a very, very robust website there with tons of information, videos, free downloads, all kinds of great stuff. So they should absolutely go there, or they can call the office at 775-883-8484.
Okay, and you can help them, and you said incorporate in any one of 50 states. Now, what I know today with the internet and globalization occurring, I was talking to literally an entrepreneur this week. The guy's in his mid-20s. He is doing business on 3 different continents through his internet websites. And what about internationally? If somebody wants to incorporate internationally, can you help them with that, or are you just restricted to the 50 states?
Well, we're not restricted by any means, but we don't do that. We do have, hundreds, if not thousands, of clients from other countries who have incorporated in the United States. We do a lot of business with this record keeping, the corporate formalities, minutes, resolutions, and so on. We do for all 50 states. We do for all the provinces in Canada. We have clients in Australia that we do that for. It's all under British common law, and it's basically the same obligation. So we provide that service to foreigners, but we don't form foreign corporations.
Gotcha.
So it's really important. If you're going to go do something, I've had companies in Canada. I had a great company in Italy, in Rome, and have done business in the UK, and I just know that their rules, their laws are so unique and so wildly different than the United States. You're going to want to find an attorney, a barrister, someone in those, whichever country you want to do business in, really get expert advice from them, because it's not the same doing business in other countries. The United States is a very, very friendly business climate compared to other countries. So get good advice from somebody in that location.
Gotcha. So you'd mentioned that the state in which you incorporate, if you have a facility, if you will, or you're operating in a specific state. So we're, as an example, I operate in California. It doesn't matter if I incorporate in Nevada. California, for me to operate here, is going to make me register with the Secretary of State, and I'm going to pay the fees anyway. So, but what about a company, say, that is doing business in more than one state? I mean, I know today with the way things are, I know a lot of people who do business, say, both in California, Nevada, and Arizona, because they're all fairly close to each other. And so they might be doing work in Arizona, they might be doing, and sometimes they'll even own a store in Los Angeles and then a store in Las Vegas. So
here's the answer. So the answer, I think, just for time's sake, I think what we're driving at is, remember I said begin with the end in mind. So if you know you're gonna end up with multiple locations in different jurisdictions, or you're going to be doing all your business online, you're not really doing any work in a specific place. Everything's being sold from an online store and drop shipped from different manufacturers. There's a really good reason that Amazon.com's all their warehousing is in Nevada, that Barnes & Noble is in Nevada, that eBay is in Nevada, that Visa is collecting money in Nevada. Because if you have business coming from a bunch of places and elements of it can be legitimately done or housed in Nevada, in Wyoming, in Delaware, then you can absolutely take very good advantage of the laws. It's just most people aren't that global in what they're doing. So what we want to do is we want to get the right companies into the best jurisdictions. Or if you're in California, but let's say you've got some intellectual property, you've got books or tapes or diet recipes or vitamin pills or something, and that special intellectual property, it could absolutely be owned by a Nevada corporation, and then your California company licenses the right to use it, buys product from the Nevada company, and so on. So it is possible for profits to amass in Nevada, and you keep everything pretty close to break even in California. You can absolutely do that. But again, it takes a plan. It takes an organized thought process of what exactly are we doing. If you think about what you're doing, and if you have legitimate ways of using multiple corporations, that's where the real money is. That's what wealthy people do. I just was talking to a very large company who, their CFO, who uses over 2,500 different business entities he has to keep track of as CFO of this very well-known publicly traded company.
Wow, 2,500?
2,500.
That is incredible.
It's a very interesting chess game, and it's fun. And you can do like Rockefeller said, and own nothing and control everything. But you've got to begin with the end in mind, and that takes planning, and that takes counsel and advice.
Okay, well, look, we've only got about 3 minutes left here. Once again, how can people get a hold of you? Give out your contact information, if you would, Aaron.
Yeah, well, they can email me at Aaron Young, AARONYOUNG, Aaron Young at LaughlinUSA.com, or they can go to the website, LaughlinUSA.com, or they can call 775-883-8484, and we'll be happy. Consulting is always free at Laughlin. If you want to call and ask questions and get some advice and counsel, it's free. You don't need to feel bad or feel pressured into buying anything. The idea is, how do we help you make a good decision so that you're successful over the long run?
Okay, I realize there's something we haven't talked about. We need to talk about it very quickly, but just can you throw out a cost there? What does it cost to, using your services, say, what would it cost for me to open up a corporation in, say, Nevada?
It'll be $450 plus whatever the filing fees are for the state. So it's $450 plus fees, and that includes your full corporate record book with not just your articles of incorporation, but your bylaws, your all the minute sections, the stock certificates. Those are all add-ons anywhere you go. If you just go to the Secretary of State and file, all you've done is sort of lock down your name. You don't have anything that makes you a real corporation or LLC. You need that operating agreement. You need the management agreement. You need the bylaws and the articles and the stock certificates or the membership certificates. That's what makes you real. And so don't be fooled by, I can do it for $99 and somebody will file my name with my state. You're not a real company at that point. And if you're ever examined, you will unwind right in front of your examiner. Remember, you can drive 100 miles an hour on the I-5 everywhere you go every day. It never matters until you're caught.
Right.
So don't make rookie mistakes because it seems cheap.
Well, something that sounds actually like a pretty good price, because I remember years ago, I'm old enough to remember when you used to go to an attorney and the attorney would set up your corporation, and I'm talking 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and the attorneys would charge you $2,500 to set up your corporation. So,
back in 1990, I remember I set up a company. It was $5,000 for a basic C corp.
Yeah, so this is a real bargain, and it really just depends on the person understanding. Do you need it, and how are you going to use it? Aaron, this has been a great conversation. I wish we could chat more, but we are running out of time. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem. It is BizRap Radio. We believe we can fix the United States of America through a fundamental concept that individuals pursuing their own economic interests in free markets will create more prosperity for more people than can ever be achieved through government regulations and a planned economy. BizRap Radio, fixing America through individual economic freedom. I am your host, Mike Manahan. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back again with another edition of BizRap Radio.